So I had this idea for my next thought of the day video, and it really wasn't my idea at all. I was sitting with a friend a few weeks ago. I was back on the Palouse wrapping up a hunting trip back in October, and I was just sitting on the back porch of a good friend of mine. His name's David Hathaway. Shout out to David. This is actually his idea. We were talking about reflecting on some things, and he shared this metaphor with me that I thought was just so good. It stuck with me. And so I wanted to make a video about it. So I give him all the credit, but this metaphor revolves around a table. And when we moved into our new home here in Cincinnati, we had this old table that we've had since we first got married years and years ago. And we just knew it was time. Table's falling apart. We're losing nuts and bolts, and benches are falling apart. And we just knew it was time. Didn't match the new home setting. So we knew that when we moved, we kept the table. We used it for a while until we had saved up some money to get a new table, but we knew that we wanted to get something new. And so we had one of our friends, Bill, actually one of my coworkers at Impact, Lowell Kosak is our Director of Staff Development, Director of Spiritual Formation at Impact Campus Ministries. And he loves to work with wood. And so we asked him if he would make a table for us. And so he made this. We are in love with this table. It's like, of all the things we've put in our home, it's a dining room table. Like, how many amazing things happen around a dining room table? It's just one of those special pieces of furniture, but it just fits so well in our home. We asked Lowell, see if I can get down here, just this beautiful, let me see if I can zoom in here, this gorgeous tabletop that he's made. Thank you, Lowell. It's amazing. And just did all this great work on it. The chairs are from IKEA, so sorry, no big amazing thing there, but we wanted it to match the railing in our home, and he just did this beautiful job matching the railing and the wood, and we just love this table. So I wanted to reflect, inspired by David. I wanted to reflect for a moment on this table that we have. Through the process, I've loved to learn all kinds of things. I remember when Lowell finished it and brought it over to our home on the day he delivered it. We had to kind of do some finish work once he got it out of the pickup truck and assembled everything here. He drove it all the way from South Bend to bring it to us, and so we set that up, and then we needed to sand what had already been stained and varnished. We needed to sand that well, and so we did that, and then we had to once we had kind of polished that up, we needed to wax it. I didn't know. I'd never had a table that had to wax before, so that was a new experience for me. So I had to learn about what the wax is and what it does and how it operates and how to do it well. And there were so many things. Like my dad, he loved to work with wood, and I very lightly dabbled in it, if at all. So it's just not one of my great passions, but I love to watch people who do have that passion. And it was great to learn some things. I could tell you now, sitting at this table and loving this table, I could tell you all kinds of things. I can tell you where the wood grain, like where my favorite spots of the wood grain on the tabletop are. I could tell you all kinds of things. And I've loved to just sit and just admire just the shiny, glossy finish of the table. Like I could just sit here and just appreciate this gorgeous red oak. We could talk about the different kinds of wood. We could have gotten red oak and the white oak and the kind of things that I've made with pine in the past. We could just talk about different kinds of wood. We could talk about the stain. We could talk about the two different stains that Lowell showed me when he wanted us to choose. So I want this color or that color, this kind or that kind. We could talk about how this tabletop was planed, how they milled it and planed it together, and the different kinds of tabletops we looked at and how we settled on this one. We could talk about the construction that Lowell made for kind of the actual structure of the table itself, or we could talk about the legs. Like we could really focus on all kinds of things. We could talk about just tables in general. We could find people that have opinions on like how wide a table should be, and how long a table should be, and how wide is too wide, and how thick for a tabletop is too thick or too thin, and there'd be all kinds of people that have ideas and convictions and opinions about all kinds of things, and there'd actually be a whole lot of science. I have some friends that they're chemists. I have a few different friends that are into chemistry, have undergrad degrees. I have one friend that has graduate level degrees in chemistry, one of those people, right? And I'm sure they could actually go into length on the stain that we used, and what is the chemical makeup of the stain and how it works, and what's happened to stains throughout the years, and why maybe stains today are better or worse than stains from 20, 30, 40 years ago. We could talk about all kinds of things, wouldn't we? And we could really talk at end. I love this table. I love it. I absolutely love this table. But none of those things are really what the table is for. Like the real goodness, like the real beauty. I'll say that again. The real beauty of this table is not in its finish. It's not in the stain or the choice of dimensions, the size or the thickness of the tabletop. It's not impacted by the IKEA chairs that we have sitting around it. Like the beauty, the true beauty of the dining room table is what happens around it. The true beauty of a dining room table is the fellowship. It's the conversation. It's the relationships. It's the guests that you'll have at your table. It's family. It's holidays. It's going to be the tears that happen at this table at different points in our journey. Good tears, bad tears. It'll be the laughter that's shared around the table. That is actually the beauty of the table. That's why the table really, that's why the table is so meaningful. It's interesting how you can be so excited. I am so excited about the table sitting by itself, clean and wiped down, and the light hitting it and the shine. And yet that's really, when I look back on my life in 20 or 30 years, that's not the stuff that I'm going to remember about the table. That's not actually what I'm going to appreciate the most about the table. By then, I'm sure the table will have a few more nicks in it. We'll have put on a few coats of wax. Maybe the color will have changed or faded or aged with time. The wood grain coming through in different ways. We'll have some amazing memories, good and bad, around this table, and that's going to be the thing. That's the thing about tables. My friend David, we were reflecting on his back patio together, and he said he feels like so many people in the church culture, they're just focused on like one aspect of the table. Like they might be experts in stain, and like they know all about the stain and all the different kinds of stain there is, and why this stain's better than that stain, and how stain has evolved throughout history, and or they might be people that are really passionate about how wide a table should be, or how, speaking spiritually in metaphors here, how long the table should be. We might have people that are really passionate about the kind of chairs that need to go around the table, or how many chairs should be at the table, and we've got people that are really passionate about colors and what colors the table should be made out of, and how it should match, and the construction of the table. And we have people that just stare. Like we have people that treat their spiritual life like this, and they just stare at the table, and they become experts at this. I mean, this little portion of wood grain right here. I'm not even sure if you can hear me as I do this, but they know this portion of wood, the 6x6 piece of grain. They know every little intricacy and nuance to the wood grain, and exactly how the stain has worked, or any imperfections or blemishes in the wax job, or anything. Like they can see. They just focus. They have this myopic focus. Maybe it's a doctrine or a practice, and like this is it, and they just, this is what matters. This focus on, and the implication, the teaching point is obvious, I hope, at this point. We can be experts. We can even have a huge perspective. We can be people that have backed up, and we know all about tables. We actually even know about the fellowship that happens around a table. We're experts in how the table operates and all the nuances and how it sits in the room and how many chairs are around it and what it takes to bring people to the table. We can even be experts in recipes and cooking and how to build relationships. We can be experts in all kinds of things. What matters is actually sitting, getting together, communing, dining, laughing, crying, being at the table. What matters is actually using the table. I have this passage that comes to mind when I think about this. There's a passage where Jesus is talking about parables. Matthew 13. And his disciples, he tells the parable of the sower. Many of us have heard it. And then the disciples come to Jesus and they say, Jesus, why do you speak to the people in parables? Like, why do you do this? Like, why do you tell stories? Why do you tell stories about sowers and seeds and fish and seeds and yeast and why do you tell stories about talents and the sheep and the goats? And why do you tell stories about 10 bridesmaids and who don't have oil in their lamps? And why do you do all this with stories? Like, what's with the parables? And Jesus essentially says, well, to you have been given the secrets of God. Like you've been given eyes to see, is what Jesus says. You read it in Matthew 13 sometime. Jesus says, you've been given eyes to see. And that's why I speak to them. And Jesus says this, for whoever has, even more will be given. But whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken away, which is a weird verse when you just read it abstractly. But when you put it in its context, you realize there are some people, let's use this metaphor of the table. There are some people that actually want to experience the table. What they care about is the people sitting around the table. They care about the experience had at the table and the relationships and the community and the food and the memories and the actual reason that the table exists. And Jesus says, for those people that want what the table is actually about, well, they'll be given that and even more. They'll be given much more than that. But those who don't want to be a part of the table, who just want to be experts in like table construction, who just want to have opinions about dimensions, who just want to focus on this myopic doctrinal, under like this one thing or this one practice that's so important, even what they have will be taken away. Like they'll never truly ever sit at the table and appreciate. And then Jesus goes in, because he says, because they have eyes but they don't see, and they have ears and they don't hear. Jesus says, in them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah. You'll be ever hearing, you'll be ever seeing, but never, you'll be ever looking, but never seeing, ever listening, but never hearing, never perceiving. For the hearts of these people have become calloused. For they neither see with their eyes, and their ears they have closed. Otherwise they would hear with their ears, they would see with their eyes, they would understand with their hearts, and they would turn, and I would heal them. Jesus quoting Isaiah, like Isaiah spoke long before Jesus, centuries before Jesus. Isaiah spoke about the people of God and how the problem with the people of God at that point in time is that they really didn't want to see. They really didn't want to sit at the table and have a spiritual meal. They didn't want to dine with God. They didn't want to be about the things that God wanted to be about in the kingdom. They didn't want any of those things. Because if they actually sat at the table, they would have to change. They would have to change. And Isaiah says, and if they did change, God would meet them and God would heal them. But they really don't even want to change. And so they close their eyes and they close their ears so that they don't have to see it. They don't actually have to show up to the meal. They don't have to be changed. How blessed are your eyes, Jesus will say, because they see, and how blessed are your ears because they hear, because many angels and righteous men long to see the things that you see and did not see it, long to hear the things that you hear and did not hear it. Jesus says, I speak to people in parables because some of you actually want to get it. And whoever wants to get it, they will get it, and with even more in measure. But for all those who don't want to get it, they're not going to get it. I wonder how much there is to learn for all of us in the church with this lesson that David gave me as a gift on his back patio that day. This idea of the table, like we're experts in so many things in the church. We all have the corner. We have all got the, we've got the corner nailed in whatever our expertise is, whatever our passion and our conviction is. Conservative, liberal, this theology, that theology, this dogma, that dogma, this spiritual practice, that piece of history. Like we're all experts, aren't we? And we struggle. We struggle sitting down, realizing that there's other people at the table, realizing that there's other expertise at the table, realizing that there's other parts of the table, and realizing at the end of the day, it's not about any of that, because it was really about sitting at the table and having community, having relationship, having a meal together, breaking bread, drinking juice, dining together in a kingdom experience. It's always been about that. That's always been what it's about. I remember one of my more favorite books is by a guy by the name of Shane Hips. And Shane wrote a book called Selling Water by the River. And the title really says it all for that one. That's really what the book is about. It's about the same idea. It's about how the church loves to sit by the river, and we love to bottle the water of the river being God, or whatever you want to call that. Like, we love to take the source of life and we bottle it. And sometimes it's great. Like, we need chemists who are experts in the stain. That's not the problem. Being an expert in this portion of the wood grain, that's not the problem. Being people that know how to construct a table, or how the size of a table, or how to sit in a room, or the chairs. We need everybody to have those pieces of expertise and convictions and all those things. Like, those things are so important, but it's not the point of the table. And so the church goes to the river, and the church gets the water, and they bottle the water. And it can be really helpful, because sometimes people don't know what the water is or what to do with the water. And so sometimes putting it in a bottle so it's easier to consume, with a label so that people know what's in it. And there's all kinds of things that the church can do that's beautiful, and it's needed, and it's necessary, and it's wonderful. But something happens where we start to, as people come to the river, and some of us don't want the bottle, and they don't need the packaging, and they just go to they just are headed to the river, and we stop them, and we keep insisting that you have to have the bottle of water. You need to get your water from us. We are the gatekeepers of the water. We are not the gatekeepers of the water. Some people just get to the river and they just jump in. They get to the river and they jump in. And the river was always the point, remember? The river was always the point. It's not the water merchant with a booth set up on the riverbank. It's not the bottle and how you put it together. It's not the labels and what's really true and important on the label about the water. Those things are all true, and they're all important, and they're all necessary for the truth to be. But just jumping in the river, that's actually, I don't know how many people I've met, myself included, that spend their whole life selling water by the river and have never actually gotten in for themselves. But they are experts at selling water. I don't want to miss the invitation to sit at a table. I want to have eyes to see. I want to have ears to hear. I want to be somebody who doesn't miss the moments that I will so easily miss. I want to experience everything that I'm being invited to experience, because to whoever has some even more will be given. I want to have a little. I want to have a taste so that I can be given even more. I want to enjoy sitting in this chair around this table with other brothers and sisters in Christ, with other people that aren't even a part of the family. I want to sit around the table. I want to have all kinds of stories and laughter and tears and profound moments and light moments and crazy. I want to have all of those things so that I can keep having more and more and more of those things. Give me more of the kingdom. Give me more of the experience. Because if I don't want that, even what I have will be taken away. But Marty, I'd rather just be an expert about this. Yeah, but that's not what the table is for. And if you don't want what the table is actually for, then even what you have will be taken away, because you're not the gatekeeper of the table. You're not the one that gets to decide like the table is about what the keeper of the house. It's about what God wants to do at the table. We've been invited. We are guests at a table. I heard this quote once. We are all guests at a table that we did not spread. We are guests at a table that we did not spread. We are hired hands. We are stewards. We get to be participants. And somebody else is running the banquet. So may we not lose sight of what the table is actually about. May we enjoy the fact that we've been invited to sit down at this table. May we actually find great joy. May we experience unbelievable gratitude for having this invitation to be here. And may we have eyes to see and ears to hear. Thank you, David, for the lesson. I still think about it, and now we get to share it with everybody else. So thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon.